It's great to see you all. And thank you, Eric, for inviting me. And either I'm a really good presenter or he was really desperate. So I'll let you all be the judge. Now, I have a bad New York accent, so if I mangle a word, you can just ask me in the Q&A later on. It's really bad. Sometimes I don't even know what I said. But I'm giving this talk for free. But there's one thing I require from you all, and that's audience participation. I need you all to talk to me. Can you do that? Say, yes, we can. Yes, we can. All right. And let's make it even louder so the people streaming can hear us. Can you say, yes, we can? Yes, we can. Awesome. Now, look, when I say we don't cut girls, you say we don't cut boys, okay? So we don't cut girls, we don't cut boys. Very good. Let's combine our energy and create a force so great that we're gonna wipe out circumcision across America. Can you give me a yes, we can? Yes, we can. Awesome. I'm Anthony Losquadro from Intaction out of New York. And I came here to be around people that know how to fight and never give up. To fight for who we are, human beings with a life of hopes, dreams, and aspirations, and the right to pursue those dreams with a natural, intact body. To be around people that share my passion to fight against the depravity of what's euphemistically called circumcision, but which is actually genital mutilation. Are you those types of people? Give me a yes, we are. Yes, we are. All right. And you're all special people because we're all taking up the challenge on an issue that most Americans aren't brave enough to talk about or care about or dare to challenge the status quo. So let's give us all a round of applause for being here and caring. And for those of us that couldn't travel but are watching on the live stream, let's give them a round of applause also. My friends, Jesus Christ was a man that was tortured and crucified on a cross for being who he was. He became a symbol of man's inhumanity to his fellow man. And he was a son. What he teaches us is that we can do better. He's a symbol that resonates with people all around the world, regardless of their beliefs. But every day, 3,000 sons of America are strapped down and tortured for being who they are. Their arms spread eagle like Christ and hurt by people who know not what they do. Instead of a crown of thorns on their head, they have a Gomco clamp attached to the end of their penis, and that a little bit of that child dies. But they don't call it being sacrificed, they call it health care. And those that do it put dollar bills where a conscience should be. Can America do better? You say, yes, we can. Can we stop this inhumanity being inflicted on this country's children? Say, yes, we can. I was asked to share a little bit about who I am and what I do about this problem we face. But before I get to that, Eric Klapper. Can you believe this guy? I first met Eric, it was at a mutual friend's apartment in Brooklyn during a January winter blizzard about almost 10 years ago. And we were going over a documentary concept called Pigs Without Blankets with a producer friend of ours. But then Eric started telling me about this far-out performance he was going to do at Harvard. And then that actually went down, and it ended up being life-changing for him. And now, fast forward many years later, and now we're in Portland, Oregon with Eric the attorney talking about pending groundbreaking litigation. What a strange trip. Eric is a guy that went above and beyond the call of duty to protect children from genital mutilation. And he went through several hard years at Georgetown Law to get us to where we are today. Can we say, yes, he did? Yes, he did. Now, Eric did that performance at Harvard, for which he's now famous for. Apparently, he was a little bit exposed, but to get his point across. Eric, I have some advice. When you're before the court making an oral argument, don't try to make your point that way. So I'm the founder of Intaction, and I'm not going to cover everything we've done over the last 15 years. It's been a journey. But I'm going to pick it up around 2019. And what we were doing was extensive public relations and media outreach, and in addition to many events at New York City's Union Square Park with our giant mobile education unit. And it was very successful in raising awareness and winning hearts and minds. And I was getting interviews for like many radio shows, TV shows, podcasts, and it culminated in an appearance on H-freaking-B-O on a show called How To with John Wilson, season 1. And then January 2020, COVID hit, and it was a major existential crisis for humanity. And I knew it would be futile to try to do interviews about circumcision where people were worried about getting sick and where their next paycheck was coming from. So I stopped doing all public relations work, and I began to think about where our future opportunities would lie. And I thought we reached enough critical mass in terms of public awareness. I mean, when you have the largest podcaster in the world, Joe Rogan, yelling out, "Stop cutting baby dicks" to his audience of millions, I think we're there. And then I thought due to COVID, states would be financially stressed due to, a large drop in tax revenues, and they would have to consider spending cuts. And I would have a solution for them. Stop paying for circumcision. So to communicate my plan, I knew I would have to lobby. And I knew lobbying worked based on past business experiences for both regional and national trade associations. But now it was time for Intactivism to adopt those methods. So I formed the Health Equality Campaign as the lobbying arm of Intaction. And health equality meaning equality between genders. We don't cut girls, so we don't cut boys. Excellent. And I registered it as a 501c4, meaning we would be unrestricted to lobby legislators and financially support political candidates for office. I then hired our first lobbyist in Albany, New York being our home turf, and we commenced meeting with legislators in person and made several trips to Albany for lobby days with our group. So we did lobby days in Albany, and this is one of our lobby days, and many legislators were actually stunned that this was being raised as an issue in the State House. So what I created was a package of resources for legislators so that anyone that wanted to sponsor legislation, they wouldn't have to start from scratch. We would offer model legislation, reference materials, grassroots support, email blast capability, and access to medical experts that would support our position, especially during committee hearings. And I'm targeting insurance payments. I'm targeting insurance because the guaranteed payments places babies on a circumcision conveyor belt. When the hospitals know that the money will be wire transferred from the insurance company's bank account directly into theirs, they'll then solicit and manipulate parents to do it. Insurance payments are the linchpin. I believe if the money's not there, the hospitals will tell parents they don't do them anymore. Not medically necessary. Your son will be fine just the way he is. So I monitor legislation in all 50 states. And as I started to do that, issues started popping up all over the place. And I ended up hiring lobbyists in Maine, North Carolina, Mississippi, and Arizona to oppose or kill bills that would reestablish Medicaid funding for NTIC. And NTIC is my shorthand for elective non-therapeutic infant circumcision. That's just a fancy way of saying it doesn't do anything and you don't need it. In New Hampshire, legislator Emily Phillips contacted me seeking assistance to do something about circumcision. So we took my model legislation on revising Medicaid regs and enhancing informed consent, and we started editing it together as a collaborative Google Doc file. She then submitted those documents directly to the House as our bills. That's what I call a partnership in government. So that Medicaid bill in New Hampshire passed the health committee, but was defeated in the House by just 6 votes last year. Now, the nice thing about legislative advocacy is you can try again. and bills can take multiple attempts to pass. So we made a second attempt this year, spearheaded by legislator Julius Soti and his lovely wife, Adrian. Now, we had bipartisan support, although it was mostly Republicans, but we also had the House Majority Leader as a co-sponsor. Now, while in the Health Committee, one Republican member, Republican Dr. Dave Nagel, who is an orthopedist, but also calls himself a practitioner of psychosocial medicine, whatever that is, he was making ridiculous arguments in opposition to our bill. Things like, some women like circumcised men. Now, for a medical doctor to advocate for a medically unnecessary surgery on an individual to please a third party, I mean, that's the definition of a breach of medical ethics. So, but he said it. Anyhow, the House leadership ended up removing him from the Health Committee. The moral of the story is when the House Majority Leader co-sponsors a bill, you better not start raising opposition to it. And the bill passed the committee 10-8 along mostly partisan lines. Now I'll discuss the vote in the House later on. Health Quality Campaign is also actively working in 2 other states right now, North Carolina and Mississippi. We're working on a regulatory change in North Carolina to close the infant circumcision for HIV prophylaxis loophole, which is ridiculous. And we're trying to kill a bill in Mississippi to add Medicaid funding for infant circumcision. In Mississippi, an obstetrician friend of a legislator, she told this person that circumcisions weren't being covered and the state should pay for them. So that's how that started. Now, typical lobbying costs per state can run from $10,000 to $30,000, to give you an idea. But I will say that the campaign has already saved thousands of children from the harm and trauma of circumcision, in Maine and also North Carolina, Mississippi, and Arizona. For instance, in Maine, by stopping LD 1858, that's 2,000 children a year that'll be left intact per year. And when you look at it over 5 years, that's like 10,000. So, and that's based on the Maine Department of Health fiscal note that was attached to the bill. So these are the results our campaign delivers. I'm continually trying to find new opportunities in other states. For instance, Big Red Texas would be a strategic target. But I've also been looking for a DC lobbyist that has connections into CMS or the Center for Medicaid Services. And if I could find someone that we can afford, because once you get up to the federal level, it gets really expensive. We're able to financially sustain our lobbying with the help of supporters and members. And it's not only the money, it's the moral support we get. When someone donates to us, it's emotionally sustaining for us, especially for those of us that are doing this day after day for free. And I'm not looking to get paid for it. I do this because I love doing it. And we're saving kids, and the kids that are going to be left intact, they won't ever know who we were, but we know. I've had some interesting conversations while lobbying as an activist. For instance, I was in Maine in a room full of women, and during a discussion of circumcision harm and the benefits of foreskin. And someone asked me, she was always curious about what a man experiences during orgasm, what it feels like. So I'm not going to get into the details of that, but that's one of the great things about our issue. Once you break the ice, things really loosen up. And I can tell you there are a decent amount of legislators that are of the intactivist mindset. For instance, just watch this.
Circumcision is medically necessary. And if I know that in executive hearings we learn that private insurances such as Anthem do not cover elective infant circumcisions, and if I know this legislation has strong bipartisan support and passed committee with a 14-6 vote in favor of OTP, and lastly, Mr. Speaker, if I know that foreskin is not a birth defect and nobody wants less penis, would I press the green button?
Yeah, give me that's good. Thank you. And that's the thing. We just need to be the icebreakers and the facilitators, and then change will happen. In New Hampshire, I've attended a half a dozen events, fundraisers, and things like that to network. And I've had conversations with everyone from the Deputy Health Committee chairperson to the Speaker of the House to the House Majority Leader. And I've had some of them tell me, men and women, that they kept their sons intact and they always thought circumcision was ridiculous. I had a state senator from Maine tell me that male infant circumcision is no different than female genital mutilation. So they're out there. We just have to make the connection. Listen to what New Hampshire Rep. Ellen Reed said on the floor while our bill was being debated.
This won't be a surprise to anyone, I don't think, but I'm a huge proponent of socialized health care, a huge proponent. Circumcision, medically unnecessary circumcision on infant boys is the only elective, cosmetic, medically unnecessary procedure that we spend taxpayer money on. What's happening is it's become a cultural norm that we do not question. But we are, in effect, virtually the only country that does this routinely by default. 80% of the men of the world are not circumcised, and they're doing okay. 11% of circumcised infants have some form of complication, including the need for revision surgeries. Some of those infants end up being children that have long-lasting negative medical impacts from those complications. What it really comes down to is choice and bodily autonomy, and we talk a lot about those concepts here. Now, I know that a previous speaker just said that this is a parental choice, but it's not a parental choice when that child becomes an adult and that choice has been taken away from them. Because if you choose to circumcise your infant, they don't get to choose to be uncircumcised when they're older. Another thing I want to bring up is the fact that Medicaid does not cover female genital mutilation. Now, here's the thing about that. Before you say, well, that's different, some of it is very, very different. Some forms of female genital mutilation are extremely severe. However, the most common form in the world is analogous exactly to circumcision. It is the removal of the clitoral hood. We do not cover that with taxpayer money. Also, it's illegal to do it at all on a female child in this country. So female infants have protections that not only do we not extend to male infants, we actually pay for those male infants to have healthy tissue removed from healthy babies. Healthy tissue removed from healthy babies. The truth of the matter is I'm a strong proponent of socialized medicine, so I believe that the money that's being spent removing healthy tissue from healthy babies should be spent on medically necessary treatment for children. Now, I appreciate the previous speaker who wanted to make a point about the access for the poor to this procedure, but we would never want to increase access for the removal of the clitoral hood, for example. We wouldn't want to increase access for that. 17 states do not use Medicaid funds to cover unnecessary circumcision, and the sky is not falling in those states. There's no trauma to parents in those states. There's no discrimination in those states. And in fact, the wealthy around the world, as far as men go, tend to be uncircumcised. So it's not really an issue of poverty versus money. It's an issue of right and wrong and how we treat newborn baby boys.
So when I first heard that, I mean, I could almost cry because she so gets it. And she probably said it better than I could, and I'm supposed to be the activist. I spoke to Kentucky Senator Rand Paul a few months ago, and I asked him why federal Medicaid was wasting money on circumcision. And he replied, circumcision, yeah, and I also have no idea what else the federal government is wasting money on or the depth of what's going on. And this was just prior to the inception of DOGE. On the other hand, I had one of my email blasts in New Hampshire in support of our current bill, HB 94, get a response from State Representative Paige Boshram. Now, I previously met her in person and I've spoken to her on the phone. She's a maternity nurse who says she specializes in birthing mothers' emotional support, but she's adamantly opposed to our bill because in her view, it'd be too traumatic to tell a mother that circumcision wouldn't be covered by insurance. No concern for the baby that's getting his penis cut, of course. Now, I always try to be diplomatic, of course, but I knew she was going to try to convince other legislators to vote against HB 94. So I made one of my email blasts out to all 400 members say, top 10 facts and myths about HB 94. And I counted everything she was going to say with our talking points. That elicited a response from her, which she told me I didn't know what I was talking about. I responded to her by saying, my friend Jonathan Conte ended his life at 34 years old over circumcision, grief, and depression, and how he could never come to terms with what his parents had done to him. So one day he put a plastic bag over his head and filled it with nitrogen gas. Don't tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. Our bill, HB 94, passed the House 184 to 183. Yeah. That was our group in Concord in the State House. We're now awaiting a vote from the Senate Health Committee, which should be within the next 2 weeks, and then the full Senate. When I first started the health quality campaign, some people said that lobbying wouldn't work. They laughed at it, said people weren't ready, and lobbyists would just take my money. I'm here to tell you legislative advocacy, when done properly and doggedly, does work. Like with litigation, we will win some and we will lose some. But I will never stop trying, and I will have a seat at the table to get our message across, to defend the rights of males to have a natural, intact body. And I will not allow them to treat baby boys like they're second-class citizens, if I can help it. But look, my words really aren't for the people in this room. You already get that circumcision is an abomination and heresy against nature, human rights, and our shared genetic heritage. I'm talking to the 170 million men across America that they need to stand up for their rights and their freedom because their freedom isn't free. There's two types of men, those that stand up for themselves or those that allow themselves to be taken advantage of. If you don't stand up and say anything, they'll have their way with you. I'm telling you, if you stand up and fight back, our opposition melts like an ice cube on a New York City street in the summertime. Because the circumcision defenders and promoters, they're liars and con men, and they know it. And they know they can't resist the will of people seeking their rights, their freedom, and their bodily autonomy. History shows that hurting people and trying to keep them down always fails in the end. Can you give me a yes, it does? Yes, it does. Now, I think a lot of men say, well, it was already done to me. I can't change what happened, so there isn't a lot I can do, so I don't care. That's one of the biggest self-defeating problems we have. But if someone was to come up to you, point a knife, and rob you of your wallet, and then run off, you probably can't get your money back. But you're still going to file a police report, do something. And if someone was to come up to you with a knife and stab you, you can't ever undo the pain you're going to feel. But you're still going to report it and try to seek justice. You don't say, that's water under the bridge, nothing I can do. You go to the police and at least try to file a report because they're going to do it to someone else. Well, if someone cut your genitals, you should want to do something about that too. People think men's silence on this issue means they don't care. They've given up. They want to undermine your freedom and rule over you with the social control experiment. And they thought they had you intimidated and that you were weak, that you would give up. Well, I'm here to say we're not giving up, we're waking up. It's time to wake up. They want you to believe cutting your genitals was for your own good. Who controls what you believe? You do. Who's the only one who controls what you believe? You do. Does it matter if someone's told you some bullshit your whole entire life? Do you have to believe it? Say no. Are you ready to stand up for yourselves? Say yes. Yes. Wake up, guys. There's 170 million of you fuckers out there. If we could harness your fighting spirit, your male energy, this would end right now. Feel the truth. Feel the freedom. Feel the freedom from all their bullshit, all their lies, all their superstitions, all the excuses. Feel your soul. Feel your spirit. Shout it out loud, and they can never take that away from you. Say, hell no. Hell no. Here's to the children of a glorious tomorrow. Say yes. Yes. I'm Anthony Losquadro. Thank you. Support the health quality campaign at intaction.org.
Brilliant talk, Tony. Thank you. So